Hello everyone, welcome back to the Fascinating Womanhood channel. On our channel, we talk about everything that has to do with developing femininity and building strong, long-lasting, loving relationships. I am Cherry Lynn, and I'm here with my mom, Dixie Andelin Forsyth. Hi.
Hi.
So we are back. We have been away from doing these long videos for a while. We've had some technology issues. We've been wanting to really improve the quality of our videos for some time, and we've actually recorded this video twice, and we've had technology issues. So hopefully this is third time is the charm. So today we are talking about the assertive feminine woman. Why are we talking about this today?
A lot of us misunderstand femininity and also being assertive. And sometimes we confuse assertiveness with aggressiveness, and they are not the same thing. Assertiveness means it doesn't bully or push others. It means that you stand up for yourself without being disrespectful. An assertive person is confident as well as clear. Whereas an aggressive person, that's a negative connotation. It's very forceful, confrontational, and can even include violence if it goes to the extreme. It intimidates in its attempt to dominate others. Unless it's extreme circumstances, that isn't what we want.
So why do so many feminine women struggle with assertiveness?
I think it's probably not understanding their own boundaries, self-esteem. They misunderstand femininity too, and they think if you're feminine, you're not assertive, and that's just simply not true. Assertiveness is actually very attractive.
I think we hear a lot of ladies ask us really simple everyday things. They're really trying to develop themselves as a feminine woman, and then they don't really know how to ask their husband for things. They don't know how to approach difficult problems because they don't want to come across, like you said earlier, as aggressive. And we really want to talk about that today because this is probably one of the reasons why femininity gets this reputation for being weak, is because sometimes we misunderstand it and we think, oh, well, I need to be feminine and I need to be delicate all the time. Well, that's not, there's a time and a place to be assertive, and assertiveness is actually very attractive to men.
Sometimes we misunderstand and think because we're feminine and we don't take this dominant role to our husbands, that means that we don't stand up for ourselves. They misunderstand our role as a feminine woman. It means we just kind of do as we're told, and we're not actually assertive about our own needs, about setting boundaries and other things.
Okay, so today we want to talk about 5 qualities that you can develop in yourself to become a little more assertive. Now, we understand that some people are just born more assertive than others. Some are more confident than others, but you can still work on this and you can still develop this within yourself. Before we start with the 5, we wanted to talk about a few examples of what we hear from women that are struggling with assertiveness and some of the categories that you might be experiencing if you're struggling with assertiveness. What's the first one?
Setting boundaries with people. That's a problem we get a lot. When to set boundaries. Sometimes we set too many boundaries, like you're not allowed to throw your towel on the floor. I mean, things like that. And also standing up for themselves in general during tough times. Another one is making tough decisions. We don't want to make a mistake, so making tough decisions is hard. Asking for things. Even some of us even have trouble asking for simple things. And for those of us who think that you should be at the point where you never need anything from anyone, that is just not realistic. We all need things. We need people to build our roads. We need doctors to see us when we're sick. We need all kinds of things.
Yeah. And I think the sensitive ladies this is going to hit home with them a little bit more, that if you're really, really sensitive, you probably struggle maybe with all of these things from time to time.
And one more thing we should add to that is self-care.
Yeah. A lot of ladies say that they don't have time for self-care, or they struggle with self-care. And a lot of it has to do with many things, not just assertiveness. But I think at the root of this problem with self-care specifically, it tends to be being assertive and like we said earlier, standing up for yourself a little bit doesn't mean that you have to be pampered all the time, but standing up for yourself and saying, I really need this and I need to be assertive enough to say that this has to be done. Okay, so now we're going to go into the 5 qualities that you can strive for to become a more assertive feminine woman. What's the first one?
The first one may not seem like it is, but it's actually really important. It's placing value on yourself as well as all women. And one of the reasons we say all women is because if you just put value on you, you tend to become selfish. And then that hurts your self-esteem. It hurts other people and hurts your relationships.
Yes, I have to say, this is where I really appreciate your book. Most of the books out there about femininity, manners, being ladylike are very on the surface, which is great, but this is deeper than on the surface. And you can't really develop yourself assertive, being an assertive woman. You can't really develop that part of you unless you dig a little deeper than just surface things. And in your book, it talks about why you should be proud of women and you should place value on women as a whole. And then you can kind of start to read through that chapter and realize why we're so amazing. And when you start to place that value on yourself, it does build your self-esteem. It takes time, though. It takes so much time.
It does, yeah.
I remember when I first read that chapter in your book, I just had goosebumps because those were things that I knew, but I never really thought about them in the way that they were described. So I definitely recommend anyone that hasn't read that, at least that one chapter for sure, to help you in your journey towards becoming more assertive, because it's really just about understanding how amazing women are. Maybe you were raised with a woman or a dad or somebody that did not place value on women. And it's kind of a problem. A lot of families are not really explaining these things to their kids. And you may have been just brought up this way.
To place a value on women as you're as good as a man is actually not. It's like saying men is the top and we're down there somewhere. We've got to try and catch up to them. We don't have any need of that. We have value ourselves completely separate from men. And even our culture here in the United States doesn't really understand this.
As a society and a culture, we try to push women up to be better than men. And that's not what we're saying either. We try to say that we're better and that it's almost like it's a constant competition. And that is not the message that we're sending today. It's about truly, genuinely digging deep and understanding the value of women in this world and the amazing things that women do. You should be very proud to be a woman in many ways. And I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but there are so many things that you should be proud of as far as being born a woman. And understanding that is really key in your journey. And I almost feel like we could go as far as to say it's first. It's the first thing that you want to really understand before you go to the other things.
Well, it's hard to go to other things if you don't have basic self-esteem.
Okay, number 2 is battling your worst inner demons, which sounds really terrifying, but what does that mean?
Well, okay, that's taken from my book on a chapter on brain matters, on the differences in how your brain works and being in the basement part of your brain. You know, we always say you got to get up or I'm down. It kind of refers to that, only we make it easier to understand by calling it like your basement. Mm-hmm. And so when you're in the basement of your mind, you're in the worst part. You're thinking everything is terrible. It's like a perpetual cloudy day all the time. And 2 of the worst things we do down there is we get caught up in all the what ifs. Have you ever said what if in your mind or out loud all the time? And the other one that a lot of us have is I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And those are actually lies that we tell ourselves. It's not true. It's just that when we put all that emotion into the I'm not good enough, it sounds true because there's emotion attached to it, but it isn't. And you can challenge that.
A lot of the women that are struggling with assertiveness that I have spoken to, and we speak to so many women around the world, really. And a lot of them, they have this one thing in common, this poor self-talk. Right. And they don't even realize it. They are incredibly unkind to themselves, whether it is not taking care of themselves, whether it is taking care of themselves, but being unkind to themselves inside. And that's what I think of when I think of inner demons, is like that voice inside you that is mean to yourself. And I know that sounds kind of aggressive, but I think a lot of us struggle with that from time to time, some of us more than others, but we all kind of struggle it. And instead of ignoring it, you have to face it. And this point is about so many things, thousands of things that you could be doing to face your inner demons, because everyone has different ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And no one hears it but you. So you're the one who has to face it. If you tell somebody, like if you told me your inner demons, I'd come out saying, what? That's not true. But I don't hear it. So you have to tell yourself that it's not true.
But the message here is about facing them.
Right.
That's my big takeaway about this one, is that you are facing them, even if it doesn't mean you're necessarily conquering them, which it would be great to conquer them. But I think the goal is to face them and not run from them or bury them. Right. And this gets incredibly deep. I know when you're talking about assertiveness, you're probably just thinking about confidence, but it's underneath there. To get that confidence, these things are under there, and you have to get under there to get to the top, if that makes sense. The third one is developing the charming version of you. What does this mean?
Well, charm is basically the talent that you have to help others feel good about themselves and feel comfortable. And when you do that, that actually boosts your own self-esteem. May not seem like it will, but you've got to be charming in the way that it suits you. If you're real bubbly and just real outgoing, the charming you is going to be different than, say, me or maybe you, who's an introvert, a little more shy. But both of them there's a charming version of you. So if you find somebody that you really think is charming, whether it's a celebrity or just somebody that you know, and they seem like you'd like to be more like that, you can kind of watch what they do and how they treat people.
Yes. And developing charm is something that just takes study and practice, especially when you're trying to figure out what it means for you. I think there's so many ladies, especially that follow us, that talk about all of the fascinating womanhood principles, and they're trying to learn them. And they're saying, I don't know when to use this, and I don't know when to use that. And to me, when I hear that phrase, I don't know when to use, I immediately kind of have like this flashing red light in my in my mind, because I'm thinking, no, you shouldn't be using anything. You should be thinking about them and practicing them. But if you are thinking in your mind, I need to be optimistic and bubbly right now, and it's not really who you are, you can practice on being more optimistic, but you probably aren't going to ever be super bubbly. So I think it's just about accepting that and saying, you know what, I'm not really that bubbly of a person, but I can work on being more optimistic, and I can work on being a little bit more relaxed and things like that. So I think it's just, this is a lot about accepting yourself so that you can be the charming version of you, because we don't want you to wear a mask. We don't want you to be assertive and wear this mask, and then when you get home you take everything off and you're like, thank goodness that was exhausting. You know, we don't want you to be that. We want you to be the better version of you.
If you put something on like a mask, like you said, it'll be exhausting because it won't really be you. And so it has to work with your own personality. And like you said, it's not something we use, it's something that we are. And it's a strength that you develop, so that it ideally, as time goes on, it'll be natural for you. And no one will ever remember that you ever weren't charming.
This is really hard for the ladies that were raised a certain way. I totally feel for those out there maybe watching this and they just don't understand, because they were raised to kind of be more raw in themselves and let everything show. It's tough. You feel like you're trying to develop yourself in a feminine way, and you take on these new traits, and then you feel like, well, wait a minute, but then I want to be assertive. I have to go back to my old ways. And this is about finding that balance of this more feminine you, but this assertive feminine you.
Yeah. It's the best you.
Yeah. Okay. So number 4 is prioritizing must-have boundaries. Now, we did a video all about boundaries, and that's a really big topic, and we could go on and make this video super long and talk about boundaries, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to attach the video on the screen, and you can watch it, but we will briefly just talk about what this means.
It's setting reasonable boundaries of behavior to fit with your own ethics and your comfort zone. And so be careful of the boundaries you set. Like you can set any boundary you want, but you might end up with a really bad relationship too much. Like you might say, you can only put your towel in this place. You can't do it in this place. And you can never leave anything out. There's things like that. But the boundaries that are more important, that are more essential, that you really have a right to set, are things like privacy boundaries, your idea of privacy, and also your friends' boundaries, meaning privacy boundaries like you don't go through your husband's phone, you don't read his journal if he keeps a journal, you don't do those kinds, you don't snoop into your husband's things. That's a privacy thing. And you can require that he not do it to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, part of being assertive that we hear about is actually the flip side of that. It's the women that are saying, he's violating my boundaries, he's stepping on me, he's insensitive. I hear that. I feel like every day I hear that. He's being insensitive in it, and how dare he, and he's so horrible. And it's really, no, you really just need to set some boundaries with him. If he's taking your things or touching your things, or not communicating with you, all those things fall under boundaries, and you have to set them, but you have to set the ones that are the most important, and let go of the small ones,
of the perfectionistic ones. Another one is friends boundaries, where you may want to he may have a friend, person of the opposite sex, a woman, that you're not a friend of, and then he spends either going out to dinner or time on the phone with this person, you're not included. That's the definite boundary issue that is not reasonable to expect in a marriage situation.
Right. We hear about money. That's a big one that we hear about a lot with ladies struggling with assertiveness. Parenting. He wants this, I want that. I don't want to be aggressive. I want to be feminine. No, this is a point where you need to be more confident and assertive, and get in there and set those boundaries. This is like I said earlier, this is a really big topic, but you can learn this and you can practice it. And I feel like the message here is that it's okay to communicate these things. You can just do them.
Yeah.
We did a video on speech and tone. You can do it with the right tone, and think about your words, and you're still going to be feminine. You're still going to be you. It's just about putting a lot of study into this.
The important ones, like the friends ones and the privacy ones, everybody needs their own privacy to some degree, even if you're married your whole life. So,
Right.
and the same thing with friends. And they're not hard, and it's easier if you do it early on rather than later, but better late than never.
Yes. Okay. And the very last one is understanding the value of men. Now, the first one, if you remember, was understanding the value of women. The last one is understanding the value of men. Why is that part of you being assertive?
You notice that several of these have to do with other people that help your self-esteem. This is another one. Like in the beginning, we said all women, not just yourself, because when you value all women, it helps your own self-esteem. The same thing is true with men. Unfortunately, we live in a culture now that does not. It attacks both men and women and their value of being male, female, masculine, feminine. And it's under attack like I've never seen before. And so for you to value men as masculine men is important to your self-confidence, your friendships, and your charm. All of it all kind of goes together.
Yes, I agree. And there's a reason why this one's last too. It's almost like you need to work through all the layers and then come back full circle, because if you are working on your confidence and you're really feeling good and you're practicing these things, and then you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm falling into these kind of like stereotypes in society with men, and you know what? He is beneath me. And you start to kind of fall into that. It is going to be really hard to be an assertive feminine woman, because you're going to start to pick on him. You're going to start to nag him. You're going to not even realize it. And that's not the message here. The message isn't that you need to be in control of everything and you girls run the world. I hear that message and all that. It's more about, okay, now I've come full circle and I need to really understand the value that men play in our society and how we work so well together.
We can and we should, because civilization cannot last without both men and women. It's not going to work. It's not going to work if you're not going to have a good marriage if you don't value men. You can't just say, I value my man and no other man. You'll tend to not value him as much if you have that attitude. When you recognize the value of all human beings, male, female, and their strengths, masculinity and femininity, it's going to be easier for you to be more confident, more assertive without going over the boundary, like we said before, and becoming aggressive and selfish. And it's got to be my way.
Some of this will really change your life. I mean, I think when women start to learn how to be more assertive and confident, they start to get more done. They're more accomplished. It's amazing some of the results that you will get from this. And it's never something that I think is worth giving up on. You should always strive to be more assertive. And I know it's so hard for some of us versus others. And you're going to make mistakes. You're never going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes along the way. And that's okay. This is just about discussing it and going through some of the things that you can really focus on every single day.
Well, and try, if you have a real problem with it, try one thing today. You don't have to do everything and change overnight. Try this one area that say, I really have a problem with this one thing, and set a boundary and stand up for yourself. If you're being bullied or just people are making fun of you or whatever it is, stand up for yourself this one day.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for all of your valuable advice today, Mom. This has been a really good discussion, and I hope you all agree. And if you have any questions down below, drop them for us so that we can answer. We try to answer every question. Sometimes we don't see all of them, but we try to answer every question. And if you haven't read Dixie's book, Fascinating Womanhood for the Timeless Woman, you definitely need to check it out. A lot of the things we talked about today are in her book, and it's expanded into so much more that you need to read about. We'll attach the links below. And if you like our channel or you like this video, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, because it helps our channel grow and it keeps us wanting to make more videos. And we're going to try to be here more often. We used to be here every week. Now we do shorts almost every day. So check out our shorts library if you haven't already. And if not, we will see you next time. If you have a subject that you would like us to cover, you can also drop that down below. We would love to get your ideas for things that we can cover in the future. And we will see you next time. Bye.
See ya.